listeners, Advocacy Coordinator Tatum here to say thank you for starting your day with our peerless, trusted Progress Texas podcasts. This critical midterm year, you can invest in the largest digital network for Texas progressives by becoming a monthly member for our summer drive. If you haven't joined or increased your gift yet, you can join today at the link in the show notes, and we'll thank you with union-made merch to match your values, plus a shout out on the Daily Dispatch. Thanks in advance for funding the progressive Texas you want to live in today.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hamline, and I write for the Bluebonnet Highway, and we are recruiting precinct chairs, we are knocking on doors, and we are working 365 days a year, and we believe in a 254 county strategy. I like Progress Texas because you are amplifying progressive voices in Texas. My slogan is progress that feels like home. This is not New York. This is not California. This is Texas progressives. This is where the progressive movement was born, which is about families, it's about hard work, and it's about coming together.
It's Tuesday, July 28, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch Rapid Response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. We can't do what we do without your support. Thanks to Jeffrey Snyder, John L. Nix, and Ben John Lukens for their ongoing sustaining partnership. Appreciate it very, very much. The way that both power and corruption flow from the top down has really come into focus this morning through three stories in which the top two elected officials in the state of Texas have taken positions quite literally against the Constitution of the United States, emboldened by the shattering of ethical norms that's happened in the Oval Office under Donald J. Trump. We start this morning with Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and the latest on his ongoing crusade to inject as much Christian doctrine into public life as he possibly can. Alejandro Serrano at the Texas Tribune says Patrick is setting the stage for a full-court press against the traditional boundary separating church and state, issuing a fresh set of aggressive interim charges for the Texas Senate. Operating under his newly created Senate Select Committee on Religious Liberty, Dan Patrick has instructed those lawmakers in particular to test the fences on both state and federal laws regarding religious practice, calling on senators to scrutinize the First Amendment's Establishment Clause to find ways to expand state-sanctioned religious influence across public education, healthcare institutions, government agencies, and private workplaces. We've talked about this committee before, 7 members, chaired by Weatherford Republican Senator Phil King, and featuring Vice Chair Angela Paxton of McKinney, who knows a thing or two about biblical grounds. Also on this committee is El Paso's Cesar Blanco, whom we're very interested in talking to as the lone Democrat on this committee as their business begins to ramp up. Dan Patrick has ordered them to dig into recent state policies, such as the potential expansion of a 2025 law that excuses student absences at Texas public schools for off-campus religious instruction, and to prepare recommendations for a new wave of conservative faith-based legislation coming in the 2027 session. We're watching as Dan Patrick spearheads the institutionalizing of religious doctrine backed by government power and enforcement. Patrick has openly rejected the constitutional concept of separating church and state under the argument that it suppresses and constrains religious individuals, which it does if we're talking about the freedom not to have religious views we don't share forced into our lives and our businesses. And it's hard not to notice that this juicing up of Jesus is happening at the same time that Republicans have openly and brazenly targeted Muslims and other non-Christian groups through rhetoric and policy. Dan Patrick is hitting the gas on the ongoing push to convert Texas into a Christian theocracy, right in line with the Ten Commandments in our classrooms, unlicensed religious chaplains replacing professional mental health counselors in our schools, and Bible stories strewn throughout our kids' textbooks. The next step is weaponizing state enforcement authority to the privilege and agendas of specifically Christian interests. The imposition of a state-mandated religion, the specific set of circumstances the Founding Fathers sought to avoid in crafting the First Amendment. If ever there was a moment when a change at the office of Texas Lieutenant Governor would be timely, it's right now. Next, we have Governor Greg Abbott also running for re-election and in his case looking to become the longest-serving governor in state history. At a moment of multiple crises facing Texas, Abbott is spending a lot of time worrying about birth tourism, as we've talked about, the supposed grave problem presented by non-citizens traveling to Texas specifically to have babies on U.S. soil, thus gaining citizenship for that child. This practice happens more rarely than holes in one by amateur golfers, as more babies are born over a single weekend in the U.S. than so-called birth tourism deliveries over an entire year. And when it does happen, the babies generally head back to their parents' home countries with their families, maybe returning later for college or to start a business, and definitely on the hook for American taxes once they start earning money anywhere in the world. The editorial board of the Dallas Morning News sees how stupid it is that the governor has dropped a new executive order marshaling 6 state agencies to actively crack down on birth tourism across Texas, a largely harmless statistical non-issue. Much like Dan Patrick's flailing against the Constitution, Abbott's birth tourism panic serves as political theater designed to challenge the 14th Amendment's clear guarantee of birthright citizenship. In his order, Abbott openly trashes established Supreme Court precedent upholding constitutional citizenship, relying on dissenting opinions to justify his defiance of the U.S. Constitution. The governor is also hoping you won't notice that while he's screaming that American citizenship is not for sale down here in Texas, the dear leader back in D.C. has issued the Trump Gold Card, which offers fast-track citizenship pathways to wealthy foreign donors. As with Dan Patrick, Texas voters have a chance to put a stop to Greg Abbott's empty hypocrisy at the ballot box this fall. As we follow the money, we are led to the Donald, whose open mockery and dismantling of ethical and moral norms has emboldened his minions here in Texas to behave so ridiculously. Eric McDaniel at NPR writes that pay-to-play politics and unvetted financial conflicts now run openly rampant in the Trump era. A culture of impunity has quickly evolved under Trump 2.0, directly establishing a new normal under which state leaders like Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick can push extreme, unaccountable agendas in Texas. As national ethics standards collapse, voters have increasingly come to view systemic corruption as a structural problem, a root cause of economic strain and government overreach. Democratic victories in November represent the most viable opportunity to stop our country from careening fully off the cliff of corruption. We have one last chance to restore meaningful oversight and rebuild institutional checks against executive power. Let's be clear here, though. Individual Democratic lawmakers are by no means immune to these structural flaws, looking at you, Congressman Cuellar. But the Republicans, in contrast, at every level are all in, so flipping key seats in November is a vital and necessary step towards stopping Trumpian grift, restoring accountability to government at all levels, and ensuring elected officials answer to working families rather than wealthy special interests. This election year, you can support the real free press by investing in pro-democracy, pro-justice, progressive storytelling delivered by Texans for Texans. Join Progress Texas this summer ahead of the midterms and become a monthly donor today, or increase your giving during our summer sustaining donor drive. With your partnership, we can reach more independents, progressives, and young voters, all of whom must be mobilized to win this fall. We invite you to sign up or increase your support during our summer drive, and we'll thank you with Perks for Progress, your choice of an exclusive Resist coffee mug, a sweet Progress Texas summer koozie, or a progressive button pack, and you'll get a shout out on the Daily Dispatch like this one for our friends Bob and Rita Ridpath, holding down the fort in Merkel, Texas. Bob and Rita, you guys are the best, and we love that we have friends in that part of the state. Thanks so much for your partnership. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Tuesday, July 28, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Learn more about what we do and how you can get involved at progresstexas.org. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a terrific day. We'll see you again here tomorrow morning.